don't get the impression that my belief in God depends on the solution of the question, why is there something rather than nothing? I think the marvelous thing about the Christian faith is that there's another dimension altogether, that God has revealed himself in the life, the death, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and it's there that the main weight of the evidence occurs. And to add to that, there's the evidence of experience, the relationship with God through Christ. I discover not only in my own life, but that of many others is real. So it all fits together in a big cumulative picture.
Well, I think you've revealed a lot, because what you revealed is that's the fundamental basis of your faith. And basically, since you believe so strongly, you're willing to you believe all the other stuff must fit in. So I think that's fine. That's you've been honest.
But my faith is evidence-based, as you claim yours
well,
is.
You haven't. No, you didn't say that. You said it was based on all sorts of things about Jesus Christ and stuff.
Yes, but this is evidence-based. I believe the resurrection occurred as a matter of history.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
Wow. That was John Lennox, mathematician from Oxford University. Mathematician from Oxford University. He's traveled the world. He's like Ravi Zacharias. John Lennox has traveled the world, spoke at top universities around the world. He knows the top people of probably leading governments in most nations. He's like kind of like the new go-to guy. John Lennox, mathematician, PhD, Oxford University. For all that knowledge as a mathematician, philosopher of science, all that knowledge, all his connections with all the top Christian apostles in the world, with all the connections to the top scientists in the world, with all the connections to the top mathematicians in the world, with all the connections to the top professors in universities in the world, all that he has. But at the end of the day, when pushed against the wall, and that was Lawrence Krauss talking to John Lennox. John Lennox, that was Lawrence Krauss. But all that I just mentioned, that John Lennox has in his back pocket, all that. But when Lawrence Krauss pushed him to the wall, he resorted to have a personal experience with Jesus.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
You would figure, folks, a guy who was one of the leading mathematicians in the world, a philosopher of science, Oxford University, you would figure someone who has the connections he has. He has like the connections almost just below the Pope. I mean, this guy is really connected, John Lennox. He has all the connections to all the top societies and knowledge base in the world. Science, math, history, you name it. He's got it all. But all he can say is, for proof for Jesus being real, proof for God being real, and proof for Jesus being real, all he can do with all that he has in his back pocket. He's got the world's knowledge in his back pocket, basically. All that, but when you push him to the wall, all he can say is, I have a personal experience with Jesus, and I believe the New Testament. Folks, don't you see? There is no evidence for the Christian God. There is no evidence for the superhero Jesus that flies around in the New Testament and disappears into a cloud in Acts 9. You know why there's no evidence for either one of them? Because they're fiction. The Bible is fiction, folks. Like I always say, I say it to Amy or you and Ravi Zacharias, I say it to all Christians. Believe in your superhero Jesus all you want. Fine, it's cool. Kids believe in Santa Claus, it's cool. Christians, life is hard, I understand it. You need a superhero. You want someone to save the day for you. I get it. I want you to keep believing. But just realize it's a fictional character from a fictional book called the Bible. Basically, the Bible is like an ancient comic book. So John Lennox is basically basing his life on an ancient comic book called the New Testament with a superhero character named Jesus. And how does he verify Jesus being real? How does he verify this disembodied God being real? Well, I met his son, Jesus. I have a personal experience. You heard him. Lawrence Krauss flat out asked him. And John Lennox said, yeah, I've met Jesus Christ.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I
have. People who study bone boxes in the first century say a Jewish male about that time, adult Jewish male, about 5'1" to 5'3", 110 pounds. So John Lennox is saying, hey, I personally met.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
This 2,000-year-old guy who's about 5'1", 110 pounds. That's small. The average woman in America is like 5'4" and 130 pounds, whatever. So this superhero Jesus is small. He's more petite than a woman. The average woman in America. He's smaller than the average woman in America. But John Lennox, mathematician, Oxford. Folks, as I always say, take some of the smartest people in the world and they will believe some of the most outrageous stuff. And John Lennox is going around the world preaching, teaching at universities and lecture halls and churches like, yeah, I've met Jesus Christ.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
This small guy, petite, smaller than a woman, 2,000 years old, dark skin, curly hair. And John Lennox wants us to believe this. That, yeah, he's actually met Jesus Christ. The superhero character in a comic book called the New Testament. John Lennox says, 2,000 years later today, I've met him.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
Well, pontificate upon that, John Lennox. I mean, you said you met him. Where'd you meet him? At your house? Did you sit down and have a conversation with this 2,000-year-old super petite little guy?
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
5'1", 110 pounds? Did you sit down and have a conversation with him? Did you introduce him to your neighbors? Hey, this is Jesus Christ in the Bible. Yeah, 2,000 years ago. He's here today. He just appeared to me. He's right here. Meet him. He's a little guy, 5'1", 110 pounds. Dark skin, curly hair. Looks like probably a mulatto, a mixed kid, a mixed adult rather. Mexican. Right? Nothing wrong with, I love Mexicans, love mixed people, whatever. I'm just making a point as far as his structural look. That's all. So John Lennox, did you introduce this 5'1", 110 pound petite guy to your neighbors? Did you introduce him to your wife? Hey, Jesus is here. To your kids, did you introduce him to your kids? Jesus is here. No, for real. You heard, folks. John Lennox said he's personally met Jesus Christ.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
Let's do, I'm doing what Greg Kukel does. It's called take the roof off. Which means if somebody presents an ideal or belief, take that ideal and belief and stretch it out to the end. And if it looks utterly ridiculous at the end, then it's false and should not be believed. And when you take John Lennox, I've met Jesus Christ.
Have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
And then you realize, hey, Jesus Christ would have been about 5'1", 110 pounds, dark skin, curly hair, like a Mexican or a mixed person. And don't forget, he had puncture wounds in his hands and feet, right? So, they got this guy 5'1", 110 pounds, soaking wet, petiter than the average American woman. And he's got holes in his hands, holes in his feet. He's got a spear wound in his side. And John Lennox said, yeah, I've met him. Like I said. Did you introduce him to somebody? Did you have a conversation? Did he tell you any great wisdom? You see how ridiculous this sounds when you take John Lennox's word at his word. I'll take your word, and you just stretch it out, and you're just like, dude, this is ridiculous, man. You're saying some 2,000-year-old guy, Peter, you met him? I mean,
have you ever met him?
Yes, I have.
I mean, John Lennox, did you cook him a meal? Because in Luke, he ate fish, and in the beginning of Acts, he ate with disciples several times. So, John Lennox, did you make him some pasta? Jesus Christ, relax. Hey, petite guy, sit down. I'm going to cook you a meal. 2,000 years, you probably haven't eaten for 2,000 years. So let me cook you a meal. Did you cook him a meal? Did he use the bathroom? I mean, that food's got to go someplace, right? You know, did he go urinate, defecate in your bathroom, John Lennox? I mean, did he flush the toilet? I mean, if I met Jesus, I'd be like, I'm saving the feces and the urine. Pee in this bottle, Jesus, and defecate in this bag, because this is amazing. I'm taking to the science, like, yo, Jesus Christ is real. I met him. Where's your proof, John Lennox? I have his urine right here and his feces. Yo, man. I mean, put it on eBay, man. That would sell for billions of dollars, for real. Folks, you could see how utterly ridiculous John Lennox is proclaiming he's met Jesus Christ of the New Testament 2,000 years ago. The superhero, the comic book character. It's like somebody saying today that they've had a personal experience with SpiderMan and he's real. And saying, yeah, I know everyone says he's fake in the movies and the original writings, whatever. Everyone's saying he's fake. No, he's real. How do you know? I've had a personal experience. This is what John Lennox is doing. Folks, you can pay people $50, $100, $1,000 for a half an hour, and they will tell you, I've experienced your dead pet. How do you know? I can't see him. He's here. I'm experiencing him right now. You can't see him, but I can. And people believe it. Like, what is my pet saying? Is my pet okay? Your pet is in heaven, Amy. Your pet, German Shepherd, says, to go in peace and to give me a Rolex watch. This is true, folks. People do this kind of stuff. And people run around like, I've seen Elvis Presley. He's alive. How do you prove it? I had a personal experience with Elvis Presley. People do it with Tupac. You know, people believe fairies. You know, people build houses, little homes for fairies. You could see it on the internet. You can go visit places. I visited places with my wife and kids at a festival, and they had a little section. I'm like, what's this? She goes, oh, these are little homes. What are little homes for? Fairies. These people who build these homes believes like these little fairies actually exist, and they live in these homes. Talk to them, folks. They'll tell you fairies are real. How do you know? I've had a personal experience with fairies. They're all around. You just got to be at the right place. Fairies are real. These homes are real homes of fairies. They believe that, but they ask for evidence. It was just personal experience, man. Personal experience. That's what John Lennox is pulling out. Fairies, dead pets, Elvis, personal experience. Jesus, personal experience. I'm going to end it right now. John Lennox. You're a nice guy. I understand life is tough, so I want you to keep believing in your superhero, imaginary friend, Jesus Christ. I want you to. I don't want you to forsake it. But don't preach dogma like hell, obey the Bible, obey Jesus, you're a sinner, you're going to hell. John Lennox, don't do any of that. Keep your Jesus. I want you to remain a Christian. I want all Christians to remain Christians. I just don't like dogma. When you want to preach dogma, Brett Strong has got to speak up. But if you just want to take your imaginary friend Jesus and just be happy and live a happy life and live for Jesus and let him give you strength and he loves you and when you die you're going to go off to the cosmos, that's fine. I get it. Kids, do it with Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairies. I get it. It brings excitement. It brings hope. You see a little kid down, you talk about Santa Claus and Christmas, man, they get like, woo, they get excited, they get energy. Christians are the same way. Not all Christians, but some Christians. So I get it. I get it, Christians. But John Lennox, man, smart guy like you talking about, I've had a personal experience with a comic book superhero named Jesus Christ in the New Testament. I met him. Oh well, folks. To each his own. Brett Strong. I'm done.